Hot on the heels of Wednesday night's 1-1 draw with Brugge, Celtic are back to Scottish Premiership action this weekend, and on Saturday it's Ross County who come calling in the 3 o'clock kick-off. Joined for this one by James. James, you were up at Lennoxtown this afternoon getting a bit of chat from Idah and Brendan Rodgers. What's the vibe up there?
Relaxed vibe, I would say. Focused but relaxed. Everyone knows what they need to do. I asked Idah off the record if he was starting tomorrow, and he was non-committal. Team's not out, he says. So we'll need to wait and see.
I mean, if you asked him off the record and then come on here and told the story, you wouldn't last too long. Does he seem in decent form? He's obviously a guy who's in and out the side at this moment in time. Made a big impact at Tynecastle last Saturday night. Less so against Brugge. I thought he'd done okay when he came off the bench. He get 15 minutes or so. How's he feeling? What's his chat about? He's fairly limited game time at the moment.
Yeah, he's certainly okay with that. Not that you want players to be overly okay with that. He's keen, but he knows how the system works. And he would need to make it. It'd be very difficult to put Kyogo out of this team because he just very much fits with the style of play. But I think he does fit the more physical games. I've said that before. He's very, very focused on just being the best he can. He said he was quite hard on himself with his early season form. He didn't feel he'd kind of replicated the form he brought towards the second half of last season when he came up on loan. And he puts that down to not really getting a proper pre-season, which obviously can affect players. But then he said, somebody pointed out his stats, and I think you'd actually pointed out in the show on Monday, so maybe it was you that pointed out to him. He scored a goal every 77 minutes, which is impressive. My counter on that on Monday night was that he's coming on the later stages of games when teams are a wee bit more tired, but still got to put the ball in the net, and he's doing that. I was delighted he got the 2 goals on Saturday, and hopefully that can kick him on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so the stat came from the Everything Celtic Twitter account. I just stole it, as all good artists do, and palmed it off as my own. But yeah, from his own point of view, he is contributing. He's getting on the park and he's making an impact when he comes on. He'll maybe feel at some point he's due a start as well, and whether that's tomorrow or further down the track, we'll need to wait and see. What about overall, James, as a group? It was mixed performance, let's call it that, on Wednesday night. Not so good at all. First half, picked up a bit second half. I do think we deserved the draw. There was a wee bit of chat back and forth on socials and our YouTube comments about whether we deserved it or not. I think on balance, we had the upper hand second half, they had it first half, and I know that's a simple way to look at it, but I think it's a point well earned. But there was a lot of hope going into the game, maybe expectation as well that we might go and get the 3 points we need to qualify out of this group section. And do you think there's maybe any element of the old European hangover and players kind of feeling a wee bit down at not getting all 3 points?
I think it'll actually go the other way. I think they'll realise that, in the first half there, they let themselves down a wee bit. Maybe just a wee bit presumptuous, that, well, if we can beat Leipzig and we can draw with Atalanta, then we can beat Brugge and qualify. It's just maybe, I felt before the game the chat was too complacent, not from Celtic, but from media. All of the record pundits put Celtic to win that game. And I just never liked that. I like a wee bit more cautious edge at this level. Rodgers talked about, they're a pot 2 team, Brugge, and they've been doing very well in the Champions League for the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years. So you need to respect that. And that's maybe just something that slipped a wee bit in the first half. But what he did say was that he feels that a few years ago we'd lost that game, but the players had it within themselves and the maturity that they've developed to get a grip of the game and to get the equaliser and then go and push for the winner. Because I think, with same as you, I think a draw was a fair result, but we could have nicked it. We could have nicked it towards the end. I think maybe just a couple of players ran out of steam, Hatate being one, just right at the end kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to carry on as a hangover into tomorrow. I think the opposite, that they'll feel they let themselves down a wee bit and they'll use that to show what they can do tomorrow.
Yeah, I've seen a few folks suggesting that Celtic were complacent and underestimated Brugge in general. I don't think Celtic, and by Celtic I mean Brendan Rodgers and the players will have been complacent at any point. We could be complacent as fans. That's our right to go and dream or hope or expect different results at different times. So I think there was some. I thought Celtic would go on and win, and having been at the game now, you're thinking, okay, they're actually a better side than I thought. but that's all right for me to think about it. I'm pretty sure Brendan Rodgers and the players were fully prepped, fully focused, and there was no suggestion of underestimating Brugge or any side. I just don't think Brendan Rodgers allows that complacency. James, it seems that yourself and Holmesy, a good pal of the show, are on the same page. He says, draw was deserved. Thought we might have nicked it at the end. Think a few changes for the weekend might freshen things up. Thanks, first of all, to Holmesy for the comment. Thanks to everyone who continues to join us in the live. If you do have any questions or comments for myself and James, let us know between now and the end of the recording, and we'll do our very best to get to them. Remember, you do have to be a member of our YouTube channel to comment on the live pre- and post-match shows. And if you want to sign up, just click on the link in the show notes to do so. James, what about that then in terms of the lineup? A few changes anticipated for tomorrow?
Yeah, I totally agree with Holmesy there. I think we've been talking about it, and Rodgers has been talking about it the last few weeks about how important the squad depth is going to be in this 10-game period, and no greater opportunity than tomorrow. And it's not even just resting, it's things like, McCowan's been togged out, stripped off to play the last 2 games, and then whatever's happening, maybe Kuhn took a wee knock on Wednesday night, and then at Hearts we'd scored, so he didn't get on then. And that is frustrating for a player. So for someone like him to just get in from the start, I think he deserves his opportunity. Anytime he comes on, he shows what he can do. And he's been really unlucky the last 2 games. So he's a great example of not just players needing rest, but players who have worked for their chance and deserve their chance. And he's one of them.
Yeah, I think Luke McCowan will be straining at the leash. I think he'll be absolutely desperate to get minutes. He's unfortunate that he's cup tied for the League Cup, so he knows that he'll be sitting out come 15th of December, and he's had to be patient in the other couple of games there. But he's available for all else, League, Champions League, Scottish Cup, those kind of things. And I think he'll just be desperate to play. And I do think to an extent he'll be over this, I'm at my boyhood club, this is a dream kind of thing. Now he's a pro who just wants to get minutes under his belt and play football. But I think whether it's him or Bernardo or Valle, there's a whole host of guys that might come in to freshen things up. Let's start at the back. So you've got Kasper Schmeichel, who will remain in goals, absolutely. Alistair Johnson, who's been named or nominated, I think it is, for some sort of FIFA Team of the Year or something. I've no idea. But it's him and a whole host of other guys. So it's clear recognition of what he's been doing on the international stage as well as for Celtic. So he's a guy in good form, a guy in good confidence, having signed his new deal last week. He definitely starts at right back. Where are you at for the rest of it? I thought Austin Trusty was excellent during the week. And I think after his mistake, Cameron Carter-Vickers was also very good. So talk me through your centre-half pairing first of all, then we'll get to left-back.
When a player's made a mistake like CCV, I don't think it's any issue for a guy of his, calibre, right? It wouldn't stick on him. I think he's one of the players that we should be careful with and rest when we can. So I would probably lean towards resting him tomorrow. But I think it's also good for players when they have made a mistake to get another game under their belt and show what they can do. But he showed what he could do for the rest of the game. I thought he responded fantastically. So all that together, it's Trusty and Scales for me.
Oh, really? I don't think he breaks up the partnership. I actually think Brendan Rodgers might be in a position now where he's looking for as little disruption across his back four as possible. And there'll be tweaks further ahead. I think that midfield three is always open to change, and the forward areas as well. I think he'll stick with CCV and Trusty. I get where you're at though. We've got this intense run of games, heading into the new year. Liam Scales hasn't kicked a ball since he gets sent off for Ireland against England the other week there. There's an argument for it. I don't think he'll go with it, but we'll need to wait and see on that one. At left back, it seems to be the case. Again, it might have been the Everything Celtic account that confirmed reports that Valle looks set to stay at Celtic for the rest of the season. That in itself, if true, is a big boost because for some reason, maybe we'll never know. Maybe, it'll come out further down the line. But for some reason, in the last, let's say 4 weeks ago or whatever, in fact, the night of the Leipzig game is when those rumours first started to surface. And all of a sudden, Valle, who had been in and doing pretty well, found himself cast aside almost. He came in on Wednesday after 59 minutes. Celtic scored in 60 minutes. Not trying to make out that it's all down to Valle, but part of it is, and you've got a term for it, you can remind me in a second, there's a reluctance with Greg Taylor, whereas there's always a desire to go forward from Alex Valle. And go forward he does in terms of playing that ball into Dyson Idah that results in Celtic's equaliser on the night. I think Valle is not just a better player, a far better player, a far better footballer. And I say that whilst giving Greg Taylor credit for everything he's done for Celtic, particularly domestically. he's a real big part of the dressing room. I just think Alex Valle is a better footballer. And on that note, I'd like to see him play. What's your take on that?
I couldn't agree more. I think there's a chasm between those two players in terms of what they bring to Celtic. The phrase I was using was that Taylor sees risk, Taylor sees danger, and Bailly sees opportunity. And no more so than Wednesday night. He came on and he was hungry for the ball straight away, and he was driving at defenders and putting Diaz into good positions, and then supporting them once he put them into good positions. It's just night and day. Like you say, everything that Taylor's done for us, but he slows us down so much, particularly at that level. It's exposed. He'll recycle the ball rather than taking the chance. I saw Ange was going bananas at someone last night for that kind of constant over recycling, and that's why that because it slows you down. That's why he was so frustrated. But then you bring Bailly on, and he's positive and he's looking for the opportunities. So that's a real good update. I hadn't seen that myself. If he's going to be here for the season, I think Rodgers is the kind of manager that if you're not committed, then you don't deserve your place in the first 11. You're almost like an emergency left back. We'll bring you on when we need to, and we needed to on Wednesday. But with that now seeming to be settled for the season, then I'd like to see him right back in anyway. Personally, I would play him up if he was going in the 1st of January. I'd play him in the 31st of December. I wouldn't really be too bothered, but I think that's just the way Rodgers works.
Yeah, maybe so. So what's the term? Taylor sees danger, Bailly sees opportunity?
Taylor sees risk, Bailly sees opportunity.
You getting it tattooed? You going for it?
Here.
Right there. No, I think that's the gist of it for most supporters. I think Bailly's he's a player that excites more, and you've seen in his 30 minutes or so on Wednesday night, he's just got this drive to get in forward areas, and actually what his movement does. So at times he will invert, at times he'll go on the outside, but his movement creates space for others. His movement creates space for whoever's left wing, whether it's Idah or James Forrest when he comes on. I think our dynamic as an attacking side changes when Alex Valle is on the park. So let's see if he gets a nod tomorrow. Midfield 3. This is the one at the moment. Callum McGregor will most likely retain his place, and rightly so, as the captain in their number 6 type role. You've then got a question mark because Rio Hatate and Arne Engels both started on Wednesday night, and I think they'll both be disappointed in what they turned in terms of performances. I'm a massive fan of both of them. I think Rio Hatate's got some special moments in his locker, and I think Arne Engels will go on to be a really, really big player for Celtic. But none of the two of them were at their best on Wednesday night. Does that provide you the perfect opportunity to slot in the aforementioned Luke McCowan and Paulo Bernardo, who I thought looked really keen and really lively when he came on?
Yeah, we need to take a broader view in these things. It's not like days of old when if you didn't get automatically picked, then you've been dropped. It's certainly that's not the case. What we're doing is managing your energy and your development through your own pace, but also the pace of these 10 games that we're going through. So I think with that in mind, Engels and Rio both dropped to the bench. Maybe you've seen the headlines from the press conference. Rodgers was effusive in his support for Arne Engels, and it was this time last year they were all saying that about Paulo Bernardo, and look at him now. They were saying about Nicholas Kuhn, look at him now. Just give it time. He's a young player. All these things. I'm the same. I think Engels will go on to be a fantastic player for Celtic, but part of that is just managing the player. You're still a young kid, 21, so managing him, give him a wee bit of time out, let him come on as an impact sub tomorrow, maybe get a goal, maybe get an assist, and rebuild his confidence that way. But from an ability perspective, I've got no qualms about him at all.
Yeah, it is interesting. I had I wouldn't even call it the debate, but the discussion with Brugge post-match yesterday. We done that, and it just seems to be there's a wee bit of, I don't know what the right word is, but some folks seem to take a bit of glee in the fact that Engels didn't play well on Wednesday. That's not being a Celtic supporter. That's the opposite of what you should be doing, and we should be backing these young guys. He's 21 years of age. He's given his all. It's not like he's shirking. The term that he's been hiding has been doing the rounds, but I think you need to be careful with that term. I get that at times he's maybe not showing up as much as he should do. It just comes from a sheer lack of confidence. I think at the moment you can see that his confidence has dipped. So he's not a guy who's not going to pull his weight for his teammates, but I just think he's maybe having his moments in the park. And on that basis, why have a Bernardo and a McCowan in reserve? Quality players if you're not going to use him, and I think now is the time to use him. So we'll see. Up top, so obviously you were speaking to Idah, and he's done himself no harm with his 2 goals against Hearts, and as I say, he played a role when he came off the bench as well. Do you think he might get a run out tomorrow? Is that a good opportunity for him?
Aye, and again, it's very much in the giving Kyogo a rest side of things, rather than anything else. Kyogo's still doing his job for us. He was so disappointed coming off on Wednesday night, wasn't he? Just if he doesn't score, he's always that wee bit, I've failed you, Celtic, and it's not the case at all. So a wee bit of rest for Kyogo, and he'll come on for the last half an hour, Idah to start. Yeah, what do you think?
I think it might be a good time. I stick by the fact that I think Kyogo's our best number 9 by quite a distance at this moment in time, but they are very different types of players. Kyogo is the right guy to start the Champions League stuff, absolutely. Although Idah did get that nod against Atalanta and played a key role that night. But yeah, I think this kind of opportunity, and you say this with respect to Ross County, but you've got to weigh it up. It's a game at home you should be winning regardless what 11 Celtic play, and I think it is a good opportunity for Idah. I suppose likewise now, Brendan Rodgers doesn't like to make too many changes. He made, was it 5 for that Falkirk game? And I think he regretted it after about 20 minutes. Yeah. I don't think it's something he does much. He might change a couple, but not many. So if we're looking at the fact that he might change 2 of his midfielders, he might change Idah. Is it too much to change your wingers, which more often than not are Kuhn and Maeda?
I've got Kuhn and Maeda down, that's my 2. I don't think he will change that. Idah was talking about how fantastic it is to play at Celtic when you've got guys like that feeding you. So it's also not a great experiment to take Kyogo out, put Idah in, but then give him 2 different wingers. You can't really judge if he's able to do what Kyogo can do for us if you're giving him a lesser level of service from the 2 wingers. So that's one reason, but the stability as well. So couldn't have made it for me.
Me too, but I wouldn't be disappointed to see Yang. I like Yang, and I think Yang's on the periphery of doing something. Yeah. He was trusted again towards the end of the game there on Wednesday night. Again, from your attendance at the press conference today, there is a suggestion that Brendan Rodgers is maybe looking for a winger. Just briefly, is the writing on the wall for Louis Palma? Is that experiment done, do you think?
Myself and Joe were chatting about that. Joe comes on the podcast. There was certainly no inclination, no mention of Palma's name. Rodgers spoke a wee bit about recruitment and stuff. Ronnie Charles from STV had a wee nibble at him, had a nibble at him to see what's going on in January. And he does expect to be busy if the right players come available. But I think it also is on the exit side. Like I say, Rodgers never mentioned any player by name, never mind Palma. But it just doesn't seem to be happening for him. We could have done with, if Palma was a left-sided Kuhn, then you'd have brought him off the bench on Wednesday night, and he's not. We're not really getting that from him. So I just think it's square peg round hole. I like him. He seems like a good character. I think he's a talent, but he doesn't have the attributes to fit the way we play. He fits in that kind of 10 role, doesn't really fit the way we play. I think he might have been the worst signing of that summer because it just doesn't make any sense. You're buying a guy who's got talent but doesn't fit the system. Why buy him at all?
Yeah, you say the worst signing that summer. He's got some competition. You've got some Lager Bielkas and some Navrotskis in there. Odin Thiago
Home. For a position that we needed. We signed a guy for a position we don't need.
It's a debate, but there was a few question marks that window. No, I agree. I think Louis Palma, again, I'm on record. I think Palma's got something to offer. I think Yang has something to offer, but we'll need to see. And I think it'll be out in the next few weeks, actually, what role those 2 have or not at Celtic Park. It does leave quality in the bench, and that's the bottom line. When it comes to domestic stuff, I think Celtic are very strong. There may be an opportunity to bring a youngster in, whether it's Daniel Cummins, who's getting the headlines just now, Francis Turley. And I think if you're going to drop youngsters in and out, Ross County at home is the time to do it. I think that's your chance to give these guys some minutes. So we'll see if that plays out. James, from Ross County's point of view, it's a question I ask quite a lot for these types of games, but do they just come and park the bus? Is that the best Don Cowie can hope for and try and steal a set piece?
Don Cowie, a student of Brendan Rodgers. He was Rodgers' first ever signing at Watford, or ever, first ever signing in football. 50 grand for Watford. So he'll certainly have a bit of an ethos but at the same time, it's resources that kind of will force his hand a wee bit. So I think they certainly have to come and be extremely switched on and extremely focused in their defence, and then see if they can nick something. But a draw is a huge result for them at Parkhead tomorrow, and that's our job to break them down. I don't really complain about teams coming and doing that. That's our problem, not theirs. And I think they will just be quite tight and quite physical. So you can't really expect too much more. It'd be lovely if they come out and play expansive football, but I think that would be naive given the gap in resources between the clubs. If they come out and play expansive football, we'll run over the top of them. So I think it just has to be quite a tight game.
Yeah, and I know they've got a few decent players, but they lose quality year on year just by nature of who they are as a club. I think of Jan Danda, who's now at Hearts. I think of Regan Charles-Cook, who tied with Georgios Giacomakis in terms of the top scorer a few years ago. But it's hard for Ross County, and I think to come out and try and play ball and go toe-to-toe would be naive. So they'll maybe just need to sit in, dig deep, and hope for the best. They currently sit in 8th place, so they're 15 points, whereas Hearts and Hibs are propping things up on 9 points. So a couple of wins and all of a sudden they get dragged back in. So as you say, a draw is a massive result for a club like Ross County, but the onus is on Celtic to go and do what we need to do. James, as part of the press conference, you got to ask what I thought was an interesting question of Brendan Rodgers regarding Paul Tisdale. So he's a guy who arrived to a bit of publicity maybe 6 weeks ago, something like that. He's got a pretty solid CV in terms of what he's done down south. What was the gist? What was your question? And likewise, what did Brendan respond with?
Yeah, so he's been there contracted since 16th of October, but he's been around the club since the summer. He was at the Queen's Park game in the summer, so it's been developing since then. And yeah, my question, I suppose, was around what is that doing for Rodgers? How is it working, and how can we benefit from that? What would we expect to see in the kind of coming weeks and months? And it's really just taking the non-football stuff off of Rodgers. We spoke about how much Ange had in his plate. He was everything to everyone, and it's not feasible. So Rodgers had the exact same problem, particularly when Mark Lowell left. I think it was one of the other recruitment guys left. So there's too much there. So it lets Rodgers basically feed Paul Tisdale and say, we've got, so let's say for talking sake, we wanted to beef things up at left back. He can then, furnish Tisdale with that information. He can go and do the legwork of, here's 10 guys, let's shortlist 5, let's try and sign 2, whatever it may be. So that's stuff that Rodgers now doesn't have to do. He can just do his coaching. He can obviously be there, manage the games and do the media side of things. Everything else he can give to Paul Tisdale. And he likes the profile that Tisdale brings because he's an ex-manager, but he knows the business side of things as well. So I think it's a great thing for Celtic. I'm really excited by it. And January, I suppose, is when we can first start to see how and if that's working.
Yeah, and I know you had a nibble about what January might look like, and Brendan, paraphrasing, told you to get to wasn't having that. But I think Paul Tisdale's role is so important because, as you say, whether you're Brendan Rodgers or Ange Postecoglou or anyone else who's the Celtic head coach, you've got plenty on your plate. You've got lots to juggle. I don't think there's enough days in the week for these guys. So to have to manage a lot of the off the park stuff, and that includes everything in terms of recruitment, current players, guys that are unhappy, youth players that might come and have an impact, and everything else in between. It's too much. And I think Paul Tisdale arrives with a smart CV in terms of that nice blend of business and football. He's been a player to a level. He's managed for a number of years down south, but he's also then gone out on his own into this kind of football consultancy type world over the last few years. And I think he's a very good fit to support what Brendan Rodgers does and allows him to kind of take things forward, and that makes a lot of sense. If it were up to you, and signings was your shout, where do you think we need to kind of focus on between Rodgers and Paul Tisdale over the next? Well, I'm saying over the next 4 weeks. The work should and will have started now, I'm sure.
Yeah. If Baye's committed for the season, then we're probably going to soldier through in terms of January stuff, and leave that to the summer. I think Taylor will leave in the summer, and that's good for him if he can go and make a move somewhere and get some good coins in his pocket and do well. I think he has a talent. I just think he's slightly below where we're setting our sights in terms of Europe. So I think we'll need that problem to be resolved in the summer. But some would say it's better to sign him now, and then they're hitting the ground running to start next season. So maybe left back, but probably not. I think we're light on right side of the centre half. We've had problems left side of the centre half for years, and now we've sorted that just as the right hand side becomes a problem. I think we've got a wee bit of lightness in the six. I don't think there's any cover for Cal, really. As I was going through kind of sketching tomorrow, could you rest Cal? Not really. And I had a bit of a debate with Dean on our Celtic chat during the week that if Christian Eriksen became available for next to nothing, say he's 150 grand a week, so how feasible that is, I don't know. But if an experienced defensive midfielder, and he's playing defensive midfield now these days, if an experienced defensive midfielder became available in a kind of Kasper Schmeichel, Joe Hart type signing, I think that would be sensible to give us a bit of cover. If we end up going deep in the Champions League, you can't be relying on one guy in one position. It's not feasible. So I think a wee bit of work there. I think left wing we're light as well, and that'll depend if something happens with Palmer. The rest we can probably get through the season with.
Yeah, that defensive midfield one's a funny one. James, you remember Daniel Henderson, who's a good friend of the show and often comments on socials or on YouTube. And Daniel was asking, it's a decent question, just to go back slightly to the Arne Engels side of things. What is he really? Is he a 6 or an 8 or a 10? It's a wee bit unclear. The suggestions are, and I don't know enough about his time at Augsburg, that he played in that defensive midfield type role there. Whereas now, since he's come into Celtic, he's very much slotting in where Matt O'Reilly left a gap. But Brendan Rodgers was quick to point out in the last couple of weeks even, they're very different players. O'Reilly's O'Reilly and he became Matt O'Reilly over time. But that Arne Engels is a very physical type of player. To me, even just, using the term physical makes you think of a number 6, that guy who's in there breaking things up, being that powerhouse who kind of just screens your defence and protects your midfielders. And for me, it is a wee bit unclear if Arne Engels will go on to provide that cover. When he signed it first, I thought that was a move, and I thought it was almost designed specifically to give you those 2 number 6s in Europe. But it's not really played out that way. So whether it's Engels or not, I do think there is a gap there and someone that should at least come in and play alongside Callum McGregor, if not give him spells out the team at times.
Yeah, I wonder, he does have the versatility. He's a big, strong guy, but Rodgers has him pegged as, a skillful player, and he is. He's a great touch. He's linked up with Kieran Johnson very well on more than one occasion. His stats are very good in that regard. And I wonder if Rodgers just wants to kind of mould that clay as an 8 rather than bringing him back to be a 6 sometimes and then he's an 8 all the other times. If he's doing that kind of focused development on him, you don't really want to change the script. You want to just keep doing the coaching as an 8. O'Reilly obviously came back and did a fantastic job at 6 when Callum was out, but that was a needs must situation. And I think we've got those 4 in the attacking midfield positions, and I just think we need 2 in the defensive rather than having to be versatile and make Engels a 6 some days and an 8 on others. I'd much rather it was a specific cover.
It's a tricky one for Celtic, isn't it? Because we will never, ever need 2 6s domestically. No. And that's whether you're taking on Aberdeen, Rangers or any of the best of the rest at any given time. So it's hard to spend big on someone who's a specialist in that position, particularly when your captain is the other guy. So that's the balance. And I do recall Rodgers saying something recently about that's why they need to sign guys who can play winger but can also cover up top, who can play 6 but can also cover 8, who can play centre half, who can also cover left back and things like that. So it's just the ongoing unique challenge of things at Celtic. So we'll see what happens come January. James, I'll come to you in a second for your scoreline prediction, but in the meantime I want to ask anyone join us in the live to bring us their scoreline for tomorrow, and also a big hello to Gio, to Alex 1967 brackets the Bunnet, and to Colin Rodgers, who have all become new members on the YouTube channel. Thanks very much to yourself and everyone else here for the support. Let us know your scoreline prediction. I'll try and read out a few just before we wrap things up in a couple of moments' time. But on that, James, what scoreline do you think we're going to see and why?
I think they'll be on it tomorrow. They want to show what they can do. There'll be players in there that haven't necessarily started in the last few weeks, and they'll be keen to show what they can do. And I think put all that together, with Ross Kearney probably coming to be quite defensive and inviting us on them, I think we'll get a couple of goals in the first half, a couple of goals in the second, and finish up 4-0.
4-0. Goals again. I think Celtic have only conceded 4 goals all season. I need to check, but we called this out on the weekly show, and I think we've scored 35 and conceded just 4 for a goal difference of plus 31. So would you be quite confident that we keep the clean sheet?
Yeah, I do. I think that was, Kasper Schmeichel and CCV were really annoyed at that goal, and it can happen. Any team that plays out from the back, it can happen, and they know why it happened. Bridle actually sent us a great bit of analysis on. It was almost like the Alex Higgins break, where one thing goes wrong and you're constantly having to chase another thing going wrong, and then Kuhn ends up facing his own goal. Yeah, it can happen, but they were very frustrated, obviously, to lose that goal, so they'll be keen to keep the 0, as they say, tomorrow.
Keep a 0. What? Just in a nutshell, who are you blaming? Just for fun, just CCV or a few bodies at play?
Oh, I mean, it starts off with Johnson. It's not the best ball to Kuhn, and then Kuhn kind of relinquishes responsibility and just says, "I'll give it to CCV." Now that's in CCV's gift to leather that at the stands, of course, but he's just not. Casper's in the right place. You don't want him flat between the sticks there. You want him off to the side so he can clear it, but he's just not looked up. I mean, you shouldn't really pass when you're not looking. I know look past your centre half. That's not what we're after.
No, I don't blame Kuhn at all. I think he took a tough ball. He didn't have many options, so he's worked his way back. He's found the one option he could find. So if anyone's interested, Brido's got a pretty interesting theory, and Brido's a big fan of Arne Engels before I say this, but he's got quite an interesting theory as to why Arne Engels should have played more of a role in potentially preventing that goal. And it was about the fact that he never showed for Alistair Johnson, first of all, and then he never showed up for Kuhn when Kuhn was very limited in terms of his options. So it's an interesting one. He's put quite a detailed comment, actually, in the YouTube comments from the post-match, which we done yesterday. So if you dig out the Club Brugge post-match, you'll see some interesting stuff from Brido in there. James, we're just about to wrap things up. A couple of scorelines here. So we've got Gio, new member. Gio fancies a 3-0 win. I'd be all over that. Shane from Boston, Shane O'Sullivan, good to see Shane here. He's going 4-0 at least. So a bit of confidence matching your own in the comments there, James. James, final thoughts ahead of this one. 3 o'clock kick-off at Celtic Park tomorrow.
Yeah, these are the games that you've got to stay focused for. Massive game at Pittodrie next week, and there's no point in going up there and doing a lot of good work and hopefully coming down with 3 points if you're a bit sloppy tomorrow. So tomorrow is a good game to set yourself up for that as the players. So I think they'll just be very switched on and looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're currently 2 points ahead of Aberdeen. They've had their wee wobble already, haven't they? So we're 2 points ahead of Aberdeen. They drew 3 each thriller with Hibs during the week. They don't play till Sunday. They're away at Tynecastle on Sunday. Rangers play St Johnstone on Sunday as well. So it's a chance again for Celtic to go another 3 points clear, if at least only temporarily. So it's one to look forward to at Celtic Park. Thanks to everyone, as I say, who's joined us here in the live, especially to Gio, to Alex, to Colin, all new members on the show. And thanks to those who continue to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. We'll be back, all going well, shortly after the final whistle tomorrow. So Saturday night, we'll bring you the post-match show. But in the meantime, enjoy the weekend and hopefully enjoy another 3 points for Celtic. We'll see you soon.